We're here today at the Caravan and Motorhome Club site at Broadway in the Cotswolds because it is home to this, the Wanderer. In other words, this is the caravan that started it all. We've got special permission to open the doors right up of the goods shed today and take a closer look at some of the details on the Wanderer. And the first thing that strikes you about this is the sheer size of it. It is just so immense to be stood here at ground level against this amazing caravan. The stats are that it's 18 foot long, 6'7" wide, and it's nearly 12 foot tall. And altogether it weighs just a shade over 2,000 kilograms. Back in its day, it would have been pulled by 2 horses, and there's actually a towing pole that would go in here at the front. And this whole front section, known as the dray section of the trailer, would pivot and steer as the horses changed direction. But the horses were relieved of one duty, which would be stopping the Wanderer, and at 2 tons, it's quite a good job that they had something in mind to help slow it down. This up here is actually a handbrake mechanism, and you can wind it in and out, and these giant cogs will turn and slowly engage the brakes onto the wheels. It seems so rudimentary, but of course this is how horse-drawn vehicles would have been back in the day. And another thing that they needed to meet the legislation, if you can call it legislation, in the 1800s would have been some form of identification light if they were going to use it at night. The Wanderer still has its original side marker lights, and they're not powered by gas, they're not powered by electricity, they're actually just giant candle holders. How cool is that? One of my favourite features of the Wanderer are these original sliding shutters that you can move over the windows if the sun gets too much. And I think these are some of the details which are so otherworldly in the world of caravans today, but so quaint and cute nonetheless. And I'm told that over the years, despite this caravan needing restoration work to keep it in the condition that it's in, these are actually the original ones as they were made in the 1800s. Obviously, on a conventional caravan, we have a central axle and an A-frame. And if you can call the towing pole an A-frame, you might be surprised to know that the Wanderer still has a front locker. Now, on most caravans these days, people will sort of grumble that they have to stoop underneath the front locker when it's open to gain access to the storage area. The Wanderer is even more difficult to access than that. We actually have to climb underneath the caravan itself. And under here, we have the front locker for storing whatever you need to chock the wheels and set up camp. You enter into the Wanderer at the back of the caravan, and it seems quite elaborate to walk up a staircase into a caravan, but this would have been quite normal for the horse-drawn wagons of the era. But that's where the similarities with the typical horse-drawn wagons of that era end, because as soon as you step into the Wanderer, you're immediately met by a small kitchenette. And I can't convey contextually of the times just how completely unknown this was. Typically people who had living wagons would have it as a bedroom on wheels, and all cooking would be done outside on an open fire. But Dr. Gordon Stables was a real rule breaker in that respect, and he commissioned that they would have a small kitchenette at the back of the caravan to handle all cooking duties and in the same space. We'll find mounted on the floor, this is a stove that uses paraffin. It's not clear if that was the original source of heat because things did evolve over time, but one thing you do know for certain is that bottled gas hadn't been invented yet, so it's not your typical gas cooker. Above that, you'll also find a purpose-made crockery store, which I think is just so adorable. The fact that it's a very household style design just really highlights how This wasn't meant to be a means to an end. This was luxury on the go. This was a way of literally bringing your home from home. And of course, it had to be real, proper pottery or china, because melamine hadn't been invented yet either. One of the really interesting things about the rear section of the Wanderer is that it can be divided off, and it doesn't just serve as a place to cook and prepare food. It also serves to have a small wash area, and it's rumoured that there would have also been some kind of toilet at some point throughout the Wanderer's history, because it does show on some of the early drawings and plans. But as it stands now, there is a sink in the corner, and a rather clever gravity-fed water system, which I'm kind of at awe at the simplicity of it. Again, that's where the Wanderer really sets the pace there, because this idea of bringing all your amenities with you was a completely unknown concept until this caravan was commissioned and built. But moving through from the kitchen and wash area at the back, you enter the main living quarter of the Wanderer. And this is, for me, the highlight of the space. It's such a comforting, cozy space, but the thing that strikes me the most is how sparse it is. We're used to seeing caravans that are completely fitted out with bespoke furniture, but instead in the Wanderer, you have copious amounts of floor space. And I'm not sure if that was by design, but we do know that Dr. Gordon Stables was a man of many hobbies, so he might have just required space to accommodate this. One of the things that we do know for certain is that he was a keen violin player, and he used to sit on the end of this bench seat and practice his violin as he was on his travels. And part of his travelling entourage with him was his trusty Newfoundland dog and also his pet parrot. And according to popular myth, the only time that this parrot would stop making noise was when Dr. Gordon Stables was practicing his violin. So I know that he had the first caravan and he wouldn't have had a neighbour to annoy, but I imagine if that was all going on the pitch next to you today, you might be complaining to the site manager about the noise. One of the other things that I absolutely love is the huge sash windows, and these open out from the bottom up and also have adorable shutters on the outside. And they just let so much light in. And again, relating it to the context of the time, typical wagons that were used for living in didn't even have windows at all. So the Wanderer really flipped the script on what this idea of the thing that was yet to be coined a caravan would be, and the windows were a key part of that. And one of the features it has, which I absolutely love, which has definitely been lost to the passages of time, is the fitment of a bookcase. And it's so adorable. It's really, really well appointed, and it's just a fascinating relic of a time long gone. We might now take a book or two with us and enjoy reading on holiday, but typically back then people would have been prolific readers, and Dr. Gordon Stables wasn't just a prolific reader, he was a prolific author as well. He wrote countless books about his adventures. He also wrote children's storybooks, and a lot of them were actually written in this very caravan. And one of the books that he wrote was this, The Cruise of the Land Yacht Wanderer, which is a fairly hefty account of his various trials and tribulations of touring the country with his Wanderer caravan. And it's a really interesting read. It's kind of a warts and all account of what it was like to be navigating the roads of the country back in the days before anybody knew what a caravan was. And as part of the preface, he speaks of how he wrote most of this book sat on the front canopy of the Wanderer. And it's kind of a bit of a strange pinch me moment that this space has this rich tapestry of history. And to think that this book was written by someone who literally sat there observing everything that was going on and came home and wrote a book about it. It feels like it suddenly brings the history of this really important piece to life. Another feature of the living quarter of the Wanderer is this bunket area here, and this is such an identifiable feature of all caravan design since the Wanderer. But it's here where you see the origin of this clever multifunctional design where it also doubles up as storage space underneath. Although unfortunately I don't think it ever turned into any sort of bed. This would have just been used as a single bunk, typical to the sort of camp beds of the era, where Dr. Gordon's stables would have slept at night. And opposite the bunket area is this fold up table, which is said to be where you could sit, write, and I don't doubt for a second that many of his books would have been written in this caravan. And in fact, the Gordon Stables family donated a huge selection of his original books to the Caravan and Motorhome Club collection to feature in this caravan and just preserve that bit of history together. Perhaps the thing that sparked people's imagination more so than anything else is the lantern roof at the top, which its official name is a Mollycroft roof. And this serves two purposes. It lets in more light, but it also increases the headroom in the main traffic area of the caravan. This design also doubles up as a way of letting a bit of air into the caravan at night. And the Mollycroft roof really did capture people's imagination, and all throughout the next 40, 50, 60 years of caravan production, all throughout the 20th century, a caravan that was a real high-end expensive model typically had a Mollycroft roof as part of their design, and it can all be traced back to the Wanderer. And this is the caravan that started it all. This is ground zero for caravan design as it would happen over the next 150 years. And although it's so antiquated and otherworldly, there are lots of features here that still feature on caravans today. So I think it's really important that the Caravan and Motorhome Club are preserving this incredible piece of history, and the Caravan and Motorhome Club collection works to make sure that they document all that process and look after the Wanderer itself. But if you want to get involved and see it for yourself, if you book to stay on the Caravan and Motorhome Club site at Broadway, it's here for anyone who's staying on site to come and have a look at and explore its history. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please do subscribe for more wholesome content.